My name is Ryan Crouch and I represented Great Britain at the 2016 Paralympic Games in Rio as a swimmer. In today's video, I'm going to tell you how I qualified for the Paralympic Games as a public swimmer. I was my own coach. I hope that people with disabilities watch this video and understand that just because you have a disability, it does not mean that you are unable to achieve your goals and dreams in life. I hope this is also seen by people that have others tell them that they cannot achieve anything in their life. If this is you, then go and prove them wrong. I'm living proof of this. And I also hope that swimmers are watching and from this video can realise that you do not necessarily need to train in a squad or in a swim club to achieve your goals within swimming. When I was in year 6 at school in 2005, it was announced that London would play host to the 2012 Olympic and Paralympic Games. I was a swimmer at the time. I was 11 years old and I was only really swimming to help my disability. Swimming is the best form of exercise for people with cerebral palsy. I have mild cerebral palsy, which affects the right-hand side of my body and mainly my right leg. Now this means that I cannot build any muscle up in my right leg, and I also suffer from fatigue more down the right-hand side of my body, and consequently it affects my walking. I walk with a limp and I have less power in the pool. And my parents took me swimming as recommended by physios just to help strengthen my disability as best that I can. I was 11 years old, I was a swimmer, and London was playing host to the 2012 Paralympic Games. Now at that age, I started dreaming. I wanted to become a Paralympian to represent Great Britain at London 2012. At the age of 11, I made the choice to swim at my first National Para Swimming Championships in Sheffield. I remember going up to Sheffield with my family and stepping foot at Ponds Forge swimming pool, and any of you swimmers that have swam there will know it's one of the best pools in the world, in my opinion. It's absolutely phenomenal. And then that is really where my dream kicked off. Also, after my first national championships as a swimmer, I was spotted by British Para Swimming. And this really took me towards the path of let's become a Paralympic swimmer. After enjoying my first nationals and picking up some medals, I quickly fell in love with swimming. My high school life was dominated by swimming. I'd done quite well at school. I was somebody that really enjoyed school, and I always say now that education comes first. No matter what any governing body or coach says within sport, education comes first, and I'm glad that I stuck to that. I would be getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning to travel to the pool so that I could train for an hour and a half before school. I would finish school and go straight to the pool, I think at the time 2 or 3 evenings a week, which meant that homework was a bit of a struggle, but I got it done thanks to my parents that, you know, were really supportive of my dream. I was in constant contact with British Swimming on training camps where I'd have to go to Manchester to swim over a weekend or over a week on a training camp. Now this meant working with some fantastic coaches and some fantastic swimmers. From quite a young age, I was in a swimming bubble on training camps with some unbelievable names within the sport. Whether that be Ellie Simmonds, or let's just stop there, Ellie Simmonds, right? I'm on training camps that Ellie Simmonds is on. And whilst I was still at school, Beijing 2008 happened and she immediately became a superstar, and I'd been on training camps with people like her. Now, within swimming, I quickly learned that being around superstars was the norm, and I could deal with that and channel it at competitions. Each summer during high school, I would go off to compete at a competition that was called the UK School Games. Now, the UK School Games was run like a mini Olympic Games. You had an athlete village where you would be staying at a uni or a campus, and you would be racing in different teams depending on which region you lived in around the UK. I wish I could go back and live these years again just for the UK School Games itself. I competed at 4 of them, and I come away with 9 medals from 10 events. It was 3 golds, 3 silvers and 3 bronze medals. But the way these games were run really give you an insight into what it might be like to compete at a Paralympic or Olympic Games. Between the ages of 11 and 16, during my high school years, I got to compete against some crazy fast swimmers. Now, in terms of being a junior, I was always first or second at national competitions. And when it got to senior nationals, where you could race any age group, I was always looking at sort of trying to be the 3rd best swimmer in Britain. And getting to mix it with these sort of swimmers just really gave me the confidence. I never felt like I was inferior to them. I always felt like one day I'm going to beat you. You know, one day I'm going to get it done and I'm going to beat you. And I've always kind of lived my life like that, that if I'm told that I can't do something, I'm going to go out of my way to achieve it. And I want to try and get that message across to you today, that if you're getting setbacks, use it as inspiration, motivate yourself, let that be the motivation, and go and kick some butt. Tell people you can do it, show them you can do it. I also feel like I had a habit of looking at the rankings with my dad, and we would write down who the person in front of me is nationally, who is better than me, and we'll go to the next competition and we'll pick them off. I just have that feeling that we're going to make steps to get to the very top of swimming, and we're going to make sure we do that. Now, as the years ticked round and London 2012 become more apparent, I think it was a year and a half before London where I really knew that I'm going to be 18. I don't think I'm going to be quick enough. And that was really hard to take at the time. Now, when I was at high school, I felt like there was a lot of attention on my swimming, and I was in the local papers a lot of the time. And I think there was almost this expectation that I was going to be at London. That was really hard to deal with, and probably one of the biggest lessons that I've learned in my life to deal with disappointment. One of my career highlights is racing at the London 2012 Olympic pool in front of, I think it was 19 members of my family at the qualifiers. So even though I knew I wasn't going to qualify for the Paralympic team, getting to race in front of my family at the age of 18 was absolutely unbelievable, and to be at that venue itself as well, it was a great day. However, dealing with that disappointment in 2012 led to some really bad health issues. I went out of my way to prove to myself and to prove other people wrong that I could achieve in swimming. I ended up going down the gym, I think it was 12 times in 14 days, and overworking my body. Well, I actually ended up in hospital after having seizures. As you can imagine, this was a really tough time for my parents really, and for myself, who I was told to start with that it was epilepsy and that I wouldn't be able to swim again. And as you can imagine, somebody that has big goals with swimming, getting told that you may never be able to swim again was absolutely heartbreaking. And this is something that eventually would lead to success. It was a few months after having seizures that I managed to get back into the pool, although this time I couldn't train the 7 sessions a week. It was just too much. I had to learn to balance my disability with my goals, and this was one of the trickiest times that I've ever come across. At the age of 18, I was at college, and you see a lot of people your age go off and do different things, taking the right or wrong path in life. And this again was something that motivated me, that, do you know what, I can still hang in there swimming. Now this took a few years. I was probably training 3 or 4 times a week by now. And a lot of swimmers and coaches will, if you are listening to this, will sit here and think, that's not enough. But again, I would go and prove that wrong in a few years. It wasn't until 2014 where I found myself in a bad relationship, which would play a big part. But I also was starting to get better in the pool. I felt like I'd learned from my mistakes of having seizures and pushing myself too much to being able to then balance myself and become more knowledgeable. I managed to break my first British record at the start of the 2014 and 15 season. It was only 5 weeks into the swimming season, so the 200 freestyle record was mine, and this was an unbelievable feeling after having 2 solid years where I couldn't train properly, but I felt like I'd finally learned how to balance life with my body and to be able to push myself in the right areas. So this was an unbelievable achievement that I still look back on with a lot of pride. 2 months later, the national championships are held in Manchester. I've already broken a British record, and I actually went to nationals and swam in the 100 free. I didn't even think this was possible, but I managed to break a 100 freestyle record that stood for 12 years. And it's still a time that to date I cannot beat. It was one of those races where I hadn't been training lots. I wasn't aware I could achieve this. I don't think my parents thought I was training hard enough. Even though they've been supportive, I don't think they saw this coming. And to break a British record in front of them at the national championships was absolutely unbelievable. This was about as good as it really got though, because within 2 weeks again, just before Christmas 2014, I had another 2 seizures, and this time it was a lot worse. This particular time I was in the middle of a bad relationship, and I had seizures that just completely threw me. I was swimming so well and I had to stop. I think it was around my birthday in February time of 2015. I actually texted my swim coach and said, that's it, I can't do it anymore, I quit. And this was purely to focus on health. So if we just think about this for a minute, this is February 2015, and after years of swimming, I've told my coach that I'm going to stop swimming. I'm going to stop the sport because health is more important, which it is. But February 2015. A few months pass, a bad relationship is over, and I really miss swimming. Now, I received an email in the early part of 2015 from Cerebral Palsy Sport to say that they would like me to be part of the Cerebral Palsy World Games. Now, this was based on my performance at Nationals at the end of 2014. This is where I broke a British record, but since then had stopped swimming. What do I do? I miss swimming. This is an opportunity of a lifetime. I can't turn it down. I say, yes, thank you very much, I'm interested. I'd love to be part of Team England. This would be held in Nottingham, which is, it's in the UK, it's not abroad anywhere, but fine. Do you know what? I've never had this opportunity before, but I'm not swimming. So that's when the key decision was made. An important part of this video is explaining to you that since 2011, I've been a swim teacher and now a swim coach. I'm still to this day so thankful that in 2012, after the Olympic and Paralympic Games, when times were really tough for me, I was offered by my coach to become a coach for the disability squad. Now, obviously being able to give something back to people with disabilities like myself was something that I jumped at the chance of, and I still do this today. And this was absolutely key in 2015. I have over the years built up a knowledge of what it takes in terms of what I've learned in the pool from a swimmer, but also a coach, and I combined that in 2015 to make the decision that I ended up making. So I wasn't swimming, I'd been out the pool, I'd quit swimming, I'd missed it, but I'd been selected for a world championship team. But there was a long way to go. I was unfit, I hadn't swum in months. So the key decision, I would jump back into the swimming pool on my own and I would coach myself. That's something I still do to this day, and it's the best decision I have ever made. As you might be able to tell, I am determined. I've been pretty relentless in achieving goals, or trying to at least achieve goals and prove a point to people and to myself as well. I am my biggest critic in life and in the pool and around the pool, and I used this as motivation then. So I had between the months of April, when I jumped back into the pool, to August 2015, when the games would be taking place. So this time didn't allow for much error, and I jumped in and got going straight away. I worked on different elements of my stroke, a really short time to get my cardio back into gear in the pool, and I'd done a lot of drills that I'd learnt from swimming and coaching itself. And all of a sudden, before the games itself, I started to realise that, hang on, I feel like I'm getting quicker here. And that was to prove the case. I feel like I've developed a new technique that suits me, and let's just put it to the test and also see if I'm ready for the competition. I arrived at the World Games probably the happiest I'd been at the time. I was out of a bad relationship, I was swimming well, I was taking control of things on my own within the pool, and all of a sudden it started to click. Now, the competition itself saw me swimming the 400 freestyle and the 100 breaststroke. Now, these are two events that weren't really my best events. As a child, I swam the 400 freestyle a lot and was pretty good at it at a time, but the older I got, the sprint distance started to come into its own. I was more of a 100 freestyle swimmer. So to be at the games and race the 400 freestyle and the 100 breaststroke, it was a little bit different. However, I managed to win gold in both of them. So I've won double gold at the Cerebral Palsy World Games, and at the end of August, after this competition, I have a family holiday, a week-long holiday. But whilst I was on this holiday, I made the decision in my head that when I get back, I'm getting into the pool and I'm going to be absolutely relentless. I feel quick, I feel like I can do things that I've never done before. And this was all based on me being in public swimming sessions and developing a technique that suited me, my disability, my body. All different aspects come together and I felt so quick. So we got back from holiday, and that September I trained like you would not believe in public swim sessions. People would get in my way, I'd go through them, I'd go around them, I'd go underneath them if I had to. I was going to get this done, whether people thought it was possible or not. My first competition of the 2015 and 2016 season was at the London Olympic pool. The competition itself actually started off quite disappointing. Now, I tried to improve on my 200 freestyle British record, and I failed. I was about a second off of the 200 time. My 100 freestyle time was average, considering that was my best event, or so everybody thought. Gets to the end of the competition, I have the 50 freestyle. This is my favourite. This is what I've been secretly working on. My PB at the time was 27.04. I hadn't beaten that for a while, but I dived in, raced 26.62. Now this wasn't far off of the British record, and the British record holder I was about to race at Nationals at the end of 2015. In November, before Nationals, it was announced of the qualification criteria for the Rio 2016 Paralympic Games. I was upstairs at home at the time and saw that the times had come out. I looked at the 50 freestyle for my category and I thought, we can do this. The qualification time for Rio 2016 was 26.49. My PB at the time was 27.50, a whole second slower than the qualification time to get to Rio. So by the time December rolled round and I went to nationals, I knew I had to do something serious. My confidence is up, and in December I have the national championships. I want to go and take it to the British record holder, and I'm going to go to beat him. After racing the British record holder on the 100 freestyle, and in a race that I felt awoken the beast inside me, I actually come second. I lost out, racing lanes next to each other. Me and the British record holder raced down the pool. He beat me to 50. I started coming back on him to 75 metres. And then I remember during the race, I thought, I'm going to beat him. I'm going to beat you. And then it went to pot. Now for me, that's when I got everything together. I thought, I cannot let this happen again. So the 50 freestyle had arrived. The important part was that I delivered a time that I could build on for the next year to go into Rio season. On my 50 freestyle, I delivered a PB in a time of 26.78. Now this was a massive drop from my original PB going into the meet, where it stood at 27.50. So I took over half a second off at the national championships after coaching myself in the swimming pool during public swim sessions. This is when my own personal crusade started. I was going to head into Paralympic year with so much momentum, motivation, and I was swimming great, but we needed to take more time off. 26.78. I needed that time to go under 26.49 by the time of the Paralympic trials. I remember seeing the new year in with my parents, and at the time there was unbelievable emotion that I was having to control. It was 2016. I can't even begin to tell you the emotion that I was feeling, trying to keep it all together, thinking this is my year, but if it's not, how am I going to deal with this? From January to April, I trained as hard as I can ever remember training. And after every training session, I would get out and I would analyse the session. And if it had been a bad session, it was the worst day of my life. With every good session, there could be even more disappointment if I didn't nail the qualification time. It was absolutely horrendous, but unbelievable to be enjoying the journey at the same time. It sounds crazy, but the journey that I went on, the personal crusade as I call it, every day I'd wake up and make sure that no one can tell me that I can't achieve something. And no matter what other coaches think of me swimming during public swim times, I'm going to get this done. I'm going to prove this to people that you can swim with no coach and you can achieve something in swimming. Every day was relentless. I would get up, I would stretch, I would go to the pool, I'd eat properly, everything I could possibly do, because I knew I had to make every day count. Remember, I went from 27.50 down to 26.78 in December, and I need to find 26.49. So I looked at life with the view of improving by 100th of a second every single day, and that would be enough. But it's tantalisingly close, and I don't want to miss out. Imagine being that close to qualifying for an Olympic or Paralympic Games, but not quite getting it done. I think that would still high on my mind today. Even though I was swimming 4 or 5 times a week in public swim sessions, I was hitting about 12,000 metres in the pool every week. And I know a lot of swimmers and coaches would say, that's not enough. You're not going to do anything off that. But again, I had to prove people wrong. I just had to trust the process. I trusted my own process. In January of 2016, I didn't have a competition. I had my head down, I was training really hard. In February, on my birthday, I raced at Norwich at the University of East Anglia, and I was really disappointed. I went 27.04 on the 50 freestyle, and remember walking away from the pool, and my parents did not think that it was possible anymore to achieve qualification for Rio. They weren't being horrible, but they were being realistic. However, I was a dreamer, and I made sure that I continued to work hard and again trusted my own process. On the 3rd of April 2016, 3 weeks before qualifiers would begin, I travelled back up to Nottingham in the pool that I won 2 gold medals at the CP World Games in. My parents were there, and I knew this was a make or break day for me. I had to deliver some serious times. On the 100 freestyle, I nearly PB'd. I was just outside my PB. And then on the 50 freestyle, I swam and went 26.70. It was a really big step up from the previous month, but again, it wasn't the qualification time. I knew I had a job to do. I knew I had to improve. But I remember driving home from Nottingham, listening to some of the music on my playlist, crying my eyes out, because in my own head, I knew I could still get it done. And the emotion was just out of this world. April 2016, Paralympic trials. Me and Mum would be flying up to Glasgow, and this is something that Mum won't mind me saying, and she says it to other people as well. She was already getting into her mind what she would need to do and what she would need to say to comfort me for when I didn't qualify for the Paralympic Games. Again, not being horrible, but this was something that just nobody thought was possible. At the qualification event in Glasgow, it was a 5-day competition. I raced on day 1, I raced on day 3, and I raced on day 5. The 100 freestyle, I PB'd and felt unbelievable. Day 3 was the 100 butterfly, an event that, in my opinion, I'm shocking at. I PB'd by 3 seconds. Day 4, I was back in the pool in the warm-up, getting timed to 25 metres. All I kept thinking was, if I can go 12 seconds to 25, then I'm going to have a chance. And I kept getting timed by a particular coach in Glasgow, and it just fed my confidence. When I was training in the gym during this season, and in between sets where I was resting, I had the thought of how am I going to deal with failing myself if I do not manage to qualify. In my head, I was going to go to the Paralympic Games in Rio, or if I failed, I was going to work in Magaluf. That was it. How random is that? But I knew I would need to get away. Day 5 of Paralympic trials. Lots of people have qualified. It's been broadcast everywhere. I have to deal with this. I have to keep myself calm. And the 50 freestyle arrives. Remember, I need a time of 26.49. I need a lifetime best, a personal best, just to make the team. I remember the raw emotion in the morning, waking up, pretty much tears streaming down my face. The emotion, taking that to the pool, trying to prove to family that, do you know what, I can do this. And I think I was the only person that did believe that I could do this. I step on the block for 50 freestyle heat, and somebody false starts. Now, I promise you, this is the truth, I've never been in a race before where somebody has false started in my race. So it was new to me. I could have toppled in as well. That would have been game over. Fortunately, I didn't. However, we had to wait for that swimmer to race down the pool before the actual heat would start properly. And I actually felt like the second time I stood on the block, my breathing had calmed down, I'd calmed myself down, and I think this made a difference. I raced and I hit a time of 26.37, which was not only under the qualification time, it was also a British record. Unfortunately, this stood for about 2 minutes and 10 seconds, I believe, before the British record holder got his record back. But I have to say, this was the guy that ended up going to Rio and winning the gold medal. So, you know, I give him a good run for his money, but it wasn't quite enough. But I was just so happy that my mum was up there and I got to compete in front of her, and I got to qualify in front of her, something that she didn't expect, and I kept saying that I can do this. Now, something else that makes the day more sweet as well for me was the fact that I knew my dad could watch the heat swim. He was a train driver, and in the afternoon he would be driving trains past the Olympic pool in London at Stratford. I could not miss out on qualification in the morning and then know that Dad's driving past the Olympic pool in London while I'm racing the final. His heart would be in his mouth. So to be able to qualify in the morning when I knew Dad could watch it, instead of being at work and wondering with his heart in his mouth during the final whether I'd qualify or not, was one of the best feelings I've ever experienced. I remember turning round and looking at the scoreboard and seeing the time and just being pumped up beyond belief. I think I threw my goggles and hat in the air. I fist pumped and shouted. It was just unbelievable, raw emotion. But I had to go and do it again. I got out the pool, the British record was beaten. Me and Mum went back to the cottage that we were staying at in Glasgow, and I had to prepare to go and do it again. Just because I hit the qualifying time, it didn't mean that I was going to Rio. This was up to British Swimming to select the team. So I, in my opinion, had to go and qualify again in the final, which was even more nerve-wracking. I race in a final that is absolutely stacked with people in my category, the category up. There's just so many fast swimmers across the pool. Two of them that I'd coached at the Invictus Games in London a few years before. So the competition was just there, and I raced and I went 26.41, which was slightly slower than the heat swim, but was also still under the Paralympic qualifying time. On the day, I had to hit a personal best time. Only that would be enough to hit the qualification time for the Paralympic Games. Still to this day, I've never gone that fast, and there has only been 2 swims in my life that I've been able to achieve that qualification time. Both of them come on the same day, on the one day that I needed it. And for that, that's something I'm always going to be proud of. And just thinking about it now is, it's crazy. It gets me emotional just thinking about it. So basically, if you are a swimmer that does not have a swim club, if you want something so bad, you can go out of your way to prove to others that you can achieve something. You can get it done too. I'm not special. I'm nothing special. I'm just a guy that followed my dream and had unbelievable self-belief. If you have a disability, do not let your disability stop you. There will always be a way There will always be something that you can achieve where people don't think you can achieve. So please let this be a lesson. Do not let other people tell you what you can or cannot do. If you do not have a disability, if you're not a swimmer, if you want to achieve other goals in life, then let this be a message to you. As you can imagine, coming out of the pool that evening was, and still is, probably the greatest day of my life. I have not made another team since for Great Britain, but in my opinion, this just makes this event even more special. Me and Mum were on cloud 9. Dad was on cloud 9 at the end of the phone, and the next thing to do was to fly back to London from Scotland, and Dad was going to pick me and Mum up, and I couldn't wait to see him. And I just remember being together as a family that first time after the competition, and it was just, yeah, it was special. The next few months that followed were like a whirlwind. British Swimming were sending emails, and we had to complete lots of different forms, medical form, medical history, all sorts of different things. And this was really tough to actually deal with, and to make sure that I was training properly as well. I was fortunate enough that this time the pool I was training at provided me with a lane in the morning so that nobody else could get in the lane. And this was different to what I experienced before. I spent the whole time during my public swimming battling in the lane, getting past people. They were getting annoyed that I was sprinting and stopping at the wall and different things like this. So public swimming has its challenges, but I'm just saying you can get it done still. You've just got to be smart. During the summer of 2016, I had picked the Paralympic kit up, which I'm proudly wearing now. And this is my favourite. Absolutely love this t-shirt, which is why I'm wearing it today. At the end of August, I met up with the Paralympic GB swim team. I was dropped off by my parents at London. There was huge emotion within that itself as well, and we had a small training camp a few days before flying out to Rio for the 2016 Paralympic Games. I was literally having to pinch myself. I was on a team with superstars. I was the dark horse, as I was told by the head coach. No one knew nothing about me. No one thought I could qualify. But there I am, standing with, you know, my own place on the team. I was on a team with people that I'd raced at national competition. I was on a team with people that had been to previous Paralympic Games and had got world records, gold medals, MBEs, all sorts, and I was part of it. Flying out to Rio with the team was unbelievable, and there was so much adrenaline and passion running through my veins, at least. I remember sitting back at the Olympic Village where we were watching the opening ceremony on the TV, because swimming was the event that starts on day one and finishes right at the end. So we made a team agreement that everybody would watch on the TV from the Olympic Village. Now, my parents actually flew out on this day to Brazil, and they attended the Paralympic opening ceremony. And just sitting at the other side of the TV, whilst Mum and Dad got to have their time at one of the most iconic stadiums in the world, coming from a big football fan, the Maracanã. This was special in itself, because I felt like finally I'd paid my mum and dad back from all the early mornings, all the money, all the sacrifices that they put into my swimming career. I had paid them back, and they were actually at the stadium instead of me. A few days into the Paralympic Games, we got to train at the actual Paralympic Aquatic Centre. In this video I will leave some photos that I managed to take, but in terms of a venue, I don't think there's ever been a better swimming pool in the world. It is absolutely mind-boggling. Competing at the Paralympic Games was my lifelong goal. And a week into the games itself, I finally got to achieve this. My first day of racing saw me racing the 100 freestyle, and I placed 13th in the world. I didn't quite make the final, and I was the second fastest Brit to actually race out there on the 100 freestyle. This for me was a fantastic day. I was slightly off my personal best time, but as my dad always said, the second you are in that pool, you've made it, you've become a Paralympian. And that's something that really hit home when that happened. The next day was the big one, in my opinion. I knew I could achieve my goal, and my goal was to reach a Paralympic final, not just turn up and make the numbers up. I want to actually get to a Paralympic final in Rio, and I had a really tough heat to be able to get that done. I was actually racing the third fastest swimmer in the world that year. Now, one of my favourite memories of all time was when I was behind the block in the heat swim. I distinctly heard my mum's voice that I was so used to hearing behind the block at a competition. I could hear mum's voice right before I got onto the block, and that completely settled me down. And I just think that's a fantastic story to be able to tell people. It's genuine as well. The last thing I heard was my own mother's voice at the Paralympic Games in front of an 18,000 seater stadium. During the race itself, I didn't start off in the lead, but down the pool, as you can see in the race footage itself, I started storming through after 25 metres, and by the end of the race, I touched the wall first and qualified for my first ever Paralympic final. For me, I feel like that was my moment. Not only did I qualify for the final itself, I was a heat winner. My name was number one on the board. You know, I won a race at the Paralympic Games. And in doing so, myself and the second place swimmer from Brazil actually knocked out the third fastest swimmer in the world. He didn't make the final. And I knew all along that let's try and, beat this swimmer next to me. And it proved to be vital in the end. I qualified 7th. The feeling during the day, knowing that you'd come back to a pool and you were coming back for more and you were going to take it to the wire. Whether you win or you lose, you are standing behind the blocks and you can see the wall at the other end where glory awaits somebody. And even though glory didn't happen for me in the final, that was such a special feeling. I was back for the Paralympic final. I was racing in front of the world. I'd been the public swimmer that came from quitting and not even swimming anymore to getting back in the pool to then qualifying for the Paralympic Games in public swim time. I was now racing in front of the world's eyes at the biggest and best swimming arena there is at the Paralympic final. And that to me, it still blows my mind to this day. I raced the race, I come 8th in the final, and fortunately enough, my teammate won. So we had a British gold medal winner in my event. And even though that wasn't me, I'm damn proud to have raced that swimmer. He was the same swimmer that beat me at Nationals. He was the same swimmer that I'd lay there every night thinking about, can I beat him? Can I beat him? And even though I didn't, he motivated me beyond belief that season. And I was so happy for him at the time as well. And people might sit there and think, do you know what? No, he's bitter. I'm bitter that I didn't win. No chance. I'd done the best that I could. And when you fulfill that, and when you know that you've done the best that you can achieve, there's nothing more satisfying than that. Other things happened at the Paralympic Games that I've not talked about to people, and I think will one day come out and, talk about it. It's quite a tough thing to talk about, It still plays on my mind today, but I managed to enjoy the majority or remainder of the Paralympic Games itself. I too found myself at the Maracana Stadium for the closing ceremony. I think it was in front of 88,000 people. At this point, my parents had flown home and it was for me to enjoy the occasion. The come down from Rio was massive. I was warned about it and it didn't really hit home until it happened. I'd come back, I flew back with the team on the plane with the gold nose, and the staff at Heathrow were clapping everybody through. I remember walking out into interviews straight away after picking the luggage up, and then as soon as you get out of the airport, it's over. And let me tell you, that's hard to deal with. That's really hard to deal with. But I'd been there, I'd done it. I was a Paralympian, and I obviously still am, and no one can take that away from me. I know I've probably rambled on a little bit on this video, but as you can probably tell, the raw emotion comes out, and I'm just so thankful that I've been able to achieve my lifelong dream. It's something that I strongly recommend that if any of you watching this video have goals in life, however big or small they may be, whether they're sporting related or not, please chase them, because you can achieve, and I back you 100%. It's been over 4 years since the 2016 Paralympic Games, and I still swim at the moment. I still coach at the moment. It's my goal to become the best coach that I can possibly be. I absolutely love the squads that I coach at the moment. We have a competitive squad. I still coach disability swimming, and I'm also fairly new to coaching masters swimming. Having said all this, I don't think I'll ever leave poolside, but I don't have long left in the pool, I personally think. My performances over the last 4 years haven't quite been as good as I'd have hoped. Where the world has moved on, in my category, I've not managed to move on. I think I got into the gym too quickly after 2016, again trying to prove a point that I was even better than the Games itself, which has proved not to be the case. It's been 4 years of swimming relatively well and still being the second fastest swimmer in Britain. However, that doesn't satisfy me anymore, and I have a shoulder injury at the moment. So at the time of this video in December 2020, it's been 10 months since I've had a shoulder injury, and it's really setting me back. So my goal is not to make the next Paralympic Games. I think that's too much of an ask. I'm a realist now as well as a dreamer, and my actual goal within swimming itself is to go to the next national championships and be British #1. Now that is still going to be a massive achievement for me, in my opinion, because I'm still a public swimmer. I have an injury, and I still believe that I can mix it at the top in Great Britain. I've mentioned a few times that I was in a bad relationship, but I was actually told by the person that I was in a relationship with that you might as well quit swimming because you will never make anything from it. And I used that as motivation. Over that next year, going into 2015 and 2016, I used that as motivation. I went out of my way to get it done. I felt like a lion in a cage, and let's break out the cage and just prove that person wrong. And that is exactly what I did. And after the Games itself, I got in touch with this person and just had my little say and said, I told you so. And there's nothing more sweeter in life than being able to tell somebody that didn't think you could do something, I've done it. If you have enjoyed this video, then please give it a thumbs up. Drop in the comment section down below your goals and ambitions in life, and please subscribe to my channel for future content. Stay safe, take care, Have a good Christmas, and I will see you in the next video.